All right, welcome. I'm Gary Parr, Editorial Director, Efficient Plant Magazine, and we're here at AVEVA World 2022. 2022?
Yes.
Yes. Post-pandemic 2022, yes. Stephen Reynolds is our guest here, and Stephen is the Chemicals Industry Principal at AVEVA with 20 years of experience in chemical engineering, specializing in polyethylene, polypropylene, methacrylate, and phenol processes.
Yes.
You admit to all that?
Well, I worked my way through a variety of processes and plants in my day, yes.
Okay, all right, we'll go with that then. All right, so the topic here is the role of data in sustainability.
Okay.
But I think for a lot of us who are older, sustainability means one thing, and today it's much more than turn off the lights.
It is. So you're exactly right. Growing up in the plants, certainly working with data in the manufacturing, sustainability was just a normal day-to-day operation, right? It was normal business. We had to conserve energy, we had to conserve raw materials. It was all about yield and cost savings. Today, the sustainability has created this larger umbrella, and it's a force of its own at this point. And certainly with some of the initiatives around climate change and carbon neutrality, it's taken. It's not just a plant effort. It's driven in a lot from the consumer side, but it's also regulatory and agency driven as well. Countries and companies have committed to these net zero targets and these intermediate targets along the way, and that requires a lot of activity.
And as we look at it from a worker and keeping people, hiring people and keeping people, an expectation, are you running into an expectation from new hires that they want to work in a culture that is sustainable, or is that kind of?
I think so. Now, I haven't seen it yet, but certainly as this next generation comes into the workforce, as they graduate in college and take that activism that they've been as part of the consumer community, now they're into manufacturing and they see, oh, here's how I can truly affect change. I think you're going to begin seeing that people want to work where that change is taken seriously.
Yeah, kind of a pride thing, and you're right. The consumer drives so much of this anymore. It's just that expectation that you're not polluting the rivers while you're making the product they buy.
Right. And it's almost table stakes for certainly for these large multinational corporations that have many different regions around the globe. The countries of residence are mandating a lot of this activity because of popular opinion and popular motivation to get it done. And so they want to work where they can affect that change. I think that's great.
What is holding people back? Now, when I look at sustainability, I figure that the larger corporations are at least able to get their arms wrapped around it, but the small and mid-sized organizations who can gain the most in terms of developing a level playing field struggle. What kinds of hurdles, what hurdles do they encounter?
Well, so we've talked about motivation. I think everyone has seen the need for change. It's no longer something that we can really hide behind and say, oh yeah, I don't think that's a problem. Now it comes to a function of how, and that's probably the biggest challenge. So the everyday, daily operations of sustainability, energy management, waste management, process optimization, I think by and large everyone has been doing. Now how does that translate into the larger, the net zero, the emissions, going from emissions monitoring to emissions control? That requires resources, perhaps capital funding to projects to install new equipment, the carbon capture, or even modeling and process change to get out of some of these high emission chemistries. You're seeing that. I think I've talked to some customers. Paint vendors or paint manufacturers are a great example. Changing some of their formulas away from some of these high emitting solvents to make a greener process. So small changes that may sound or that may seem small require, supply chain, logistical cost structures that, aren't just an overnight win. So they have to plan and think through these, and it could be years in the making, some of these.
So where are people at in terms of, do they have the right data? Are they acquiring the data and they just need to identify the correct data to be sustainable? Where are we at in that spectrum?
Probably all over that spectrum.
Exactly. Great. That's no help.
Yeah. So I think one of the statistics that we've seen introduced is, over 50% of the data has been introduced in the last couple of years, and we keep growing exponentially as far as generating data. But being able to translate that to information is probably the big problem. We've got data everywhere. Not everyone knows how to use it or what they want to use or what they would need. So I think that'll be a big challenge. You're seeing, especially in the chemical industry, the difference between, say, new plants and some of our older plants, or large-scale processes versus the smaller scale, and what they've been able to operate within. So, for example, some of the more heavily regulated continuous processes are already instrumented and have the data at hand. They may not be using it fully, but they have a lot of the data available. And you contrast that with maybe some of the smaller specialty chemical manufacturers that, given the nature of their processes and their business, have been able to operate in somewhat of a manual mode because the process was either basic enough or they operated within their limits to make it feasible to do so. Now, as demand creeps up and regulations intensify, that need for data and actionable data is increasing. So getting away with, say, paper rounds or hourly check sheets is no longer good enough to operate at, say, your process limits. There's safety factors, there's environmental factors, and being able to respond to that in real time is going to be maybe the difference between winning and losing on a given day. And so you're seeing people who have maybe not ignored their data, but have taken a slower approach to it, reaching now to catch up.
Are we at a point with technology that we can help people with legacy assets, that we can get the data out of legacy assets? Do we generally have the technology in place?
We do. It's and it's getting cheaper every day. And more available and accessible. We've all heard of IoT devices. I mean, we're using Bluetooth microphones and cameras today. But a lot of times, so my background is with the PI system. So we'd run the data through the control system into PI and capture the historical data. We had to make decisions based on our control system, how many tags were available in there to pass data from the plant through the DCS into PI. Nowadays, with our edge devices and the IoT technology, a lot of that can, if it's not necessary for control and safety, we can get that historical data directly from the sensor into these historians or up into the cloud systems. So I think retrofitting, installing remote sensors that feed into these data infrastructures is very accessible now. Add that into equipment and process vendors who are inventing new technologies and ways to retrofit their equipment. You're seeing more and more specialized instrumentation that can go directly into the cloud for those types of analytics.
Yep. But now, okay, we can get the data, but then getting the right data and realizing what the right data is and then doing the proper analysis so you can actually use it. Still a huge hurdle for most? Or no?
I mean, it's getting better.
That's good.
We talk a lot about the connected plant and the connected worker. And and all this data and all this technology, our goal is not to necessarily replace the worker, but enable them to make better decisions at that point of action, so that we don't have to capture data on a round sheet that then goes to the supervisor, that gets run up the flagpole to the engineers and management team to make a decision on how we respond. Now we have those prescriptive and predictive analytics that go with the data to inform the person at the shop floor, say, whew, I need to make a change right now, or we're going to have a bad day.
Yeah.
So that said, technology is enabling our people, but we still have to train it. And that does take resource and time and effort.
Yeah.
And not every plant, through lean manufacturing and other initiatives, we've, I can remember my first job out of school, we had maybe 12 to 15 engineers. And now a lot of those plants are running with maybe 1, 2 engineers, or they've centralized and have central expertise that's a phone call away, and we operate with remote monitoring of data systems. So there's ways to do it, but you still have to have somebody who's that subject matter expert who knows what they're looking at, or can train the models to impact your day.
Yeah. But the key to all this then is enabling people top to bottom to make decisions, not having one person calling all the shots, but someone at the operation level saying, wait a minute, this isn't right, I need to flip a switch here.
Exactly. I mean, if I look through my history in operations, there was always that one operator who knew the secret move, right? And they may not have all the secret moves, and some of those were scattered across the whole operations team, but being able to translate that inherent knowledge into our technologies is going to allow us to capture and retain it, but also act on it much faster and not wait till that one person is on shift to help us troubleshoot.
Until we have a staff meeting and decide, yeah.
So, the people piece of this is, like you say, it's from top to bottom. So you have to have someone in a leadership position who recognizes the need for change, whether it's sustainability and recognizing, hey, we have to hit our targets, or we can't continue to operate this way anymore. Our processes are maxed out. We're operating at an envelope that we're not used to seeing. We have to do better. So that leadership has to take ownership of the initiative, drive change, but it also has to be picked up at the people, the subject matter experts, to run with it and say, okay, well, here's the data I need, or here's the algorithms, here are the spreadsheets that I've been using for 20 years. How do we translate that into the systems so that everyone can use them? And then down to the operators of, okay, I hear you, corporate, we're going to try this. How do we demonstrate value to them so that they get buy-in and become our change agents at the shop floor?
And there's another key, communicating value all the way up so that you continue to get the support to move forward. Yeah.
And data and digital transformation is kind of that investment mentality. So you look at change management, identifying those quick wins gives you credibility not only at the leadership group writing the checks for these programs, but the folks doing the work. They see that win and say, oh, that's what these systems are meant to do. What else do you got?
Yeah.
I mean, and so often we buy these tools and they die on the vine because improper communication, improper initiation or installation, and we use them, they get lip service, and personnel changes, leadership changes, and it goes on the shelf, and we never speak about it again.
Yeah, if you and I could split the amount of money that's been spent on dead projects,
As an engineer, if every project went the way I said it was supposed to, we'd probably be making plastic out of thin air.
All right, Stephen, thank you.
You
Good
bet.
insights. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.